Part 2, Sukkot 2020, 2 Kings 6:16. Okay, now, this is translated from the story where Elisha, the king of Aram, was setting up ambushes for the king of Yehuda, I believe it was, southern kingdom. And Elisha was apparently getting insight from Yahweh and telling the king of Israel, southern kingdom would have been the king of Judah, but nevertheless he was telling him, hey, don't go over there because these guys are hiding out in the woods. They're gonna try to nail you when you're unsuspecting. And so the king of Judah would avoid that area. And so the king of Aram, it happened a number of times, and he says, all right, I've got a spy. Somebody's ratting on me, and we're going to find out who it is, or we're all in big trouble. And one of his men says, hey, it's not one of us. We're not betraying you. Elisha, the prophet, he's getting words from on high, and he's telling the king. So, okay, let's go get him. So he sent a whole army out to get Elisha. And they found out that he was hanging out in the city of Dothan, I believe it was. And so they surrounded the city this one night, this whole army. And when they woke up in the morning, it's like, oh gosh, you know, does the whole city go under siege? They're just trying to get this one man. Is that where the city people grab him and throw him out? And Elisha's friend, his sidekick, was going, oh gosh, this is just, we're done. This is horrible. And Elisha said, he prayed to Yahweh and said, will you please open the eyes of my servant? And then he said these words. It's translated al-tira. This gets into what you were talking about where he says, do not judge. But this word al is translated both as do not, but also motion toward. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is in the affirmative, and that's in the negative. So which is it? It's both. That's where he says, it doesn't say do not judge. Well, the word to judge, one word for judge would be dan. So al, and then you could say express would be dana, al dana. Do not judge, but it might mean with the motion towards the way you express judgment, it'll be measured to you. And the word gimel mem means back at you, or like this reversal. And so also, that's probably what he said, but that's where Sandy Bruce had identified that. I've not read that, but that would be the construct of the Hebrew words. So what I'm saying is that whenever you see this word aleph lamed in Hebrew, you don't know which of the two it is. Is it motion toward, or does it mean do not? If it really meant do not, why didn't they reverse these two letters and say lamed aleph? That's the word that means no, not, or non. Why didn't they, it's Hebrew. Hebrew's got this stuff going on, so part of learning the language is learning the stuff. Like in English, I before E, except after C. Except sometimes. I lost a spelling bee in 4th grade because of that stupid word foreign, you know. I before E, except after C. I forgot the except sometimes. And it's like, so what I'm saying is it'll throw you, it'll mess you up, and you got to get over it. You got to get over the attitude of people lying to you and realize the reason they're lying to you is because they don't know either. They don't understand. And I've seen many different translations where people are just bouncing around. It's like, how did he come up with that? Did he come up with that himself? Did he hear it from somebody else? Did some rabbi say something? I don't know, but what the heck? You got to be careful what you hear, which is why I'll give you the proof that this is Yahweh's first word in a few minutes after we go through this. But I'll prove it. I'm not asking you to believe me because I'm saying so. But what I'm saying is that this is just this first word. Well, this commandment right here, al-tira, is the most often repeated commandment in the entire Bible. 365 times. Somebody else did the count, not me. I'm going on the information. One for every day of the year, he says, do not fear. A couple times you'll see that it's lo-tira. But what does yira mean? Well, if I just look at this word, yod-resh aleph, that means to fear or reverence. Fear Elohim, that's the word yirah. Tav is a prefix letter that just puts it into past tense or future tense. So in Hebrew there's only two tenses. There's present and then there's otherwise. That's why a bunch of translations, some will take an exact verse and they'll say, oh, this is talking about the past. And somebody else will say, no, this is talking about the future. It's like, well, which is it? Could be either one. Is it both? nobody will save. So that's why in the Stone's Tanakh translation, you'll see that one verse says, well, Elohim will have saved his people. And it's like, what do you mean will have saved his people? You look at the KJV and it says Yahweh will save his people. Future, like the coming of the Messiah. So why are they writing in the past tense that it's a future thing, that something's going to happen? It's like, it'll throw you, it'll get you very confused. Right. Because of the way it's written. That's the syntax, that's the structure of the language. And again, you have to bump into that, get agitated, and then get over it. But if you don't bump into it, it means you don't understand it. So it means you're missing something. So the very interesting thing about this, when you get into some of the doctrines, the theories, you might say the upshot of the download, is that if you're a good Christian, and you know what you believe, and you stand for what you believe, and you're going to hold the wall for what you believe, and combat anybody that will try to get you to not believe it, then when you hear some of this stuff, you got to go, no way, man, that's not my Jesus. That's not the way it works. And if you don't do that, you're being a bad Christian. You're supposed to hold the line and defend the faith. But then all of a sudden, when you hear these words from the inside of your heart, your mind, listening to the Ruach, you realize the Christian faith is wrong in some regards. And if you don't first hear it and fight against it, you're a bad Christian. But if you continue fighting against it, you realize you're being a bad Christian. Maybe not a bad Christian, a bad Hebrew. Because what I found is that to listen to Yahweh's words means you can't be a Christian. Choo! Did I say that? Right. Definition of terms. I could elaborate, that's a little bit of a distraction, but what I'm saying is, I never sought to become a non-Christian, a non-believer. But what I found was that the Christian faith at large, and we're talking about 2,000 years, 50,000, some people say, Protestant denominations, besides of which the Orthodox, besides of which the Catholic, besides of which all these little fringe cult groups, besides of which there's maybe the Mormons, the SDJs, the JWs, and it's like, oh man, how many variations? I'm not putting a stigma, a classification, a label on anybody, but I'm saying at large, what 2,000 years of 100 permutations or 100,000 permutations represents as a worldview construct, it disagrees with the Torah in a number of different critical ways, not the least of which is the name of your God, your deity. He said, my name is Yahweh. But you read in King James, it says, I am the Lord. That is my name. It's like, well, he said it right there. Bad translation. It's not a translation. He didn't say, I am the Lord, that is my name. He says, I am Yahuwah Zavot, that is my name. Well, but yeah, we can't say those words. You can't say what? Yahuwah? Yoo-hoo! You just said it. It's like, literally, that's where the name came from. Apparently, the Assyrians used as a term of derision, you bunch of yahoos, bunch of idiots, stupid. A derision using their own name of their deity against them. Right. You can say Yahoo, you've just spoken the unutterable name. His name isn't the Lord. The Catholics boldly, proudly claim that they changed the Sabbath day from the seventh day to the first day to prove that they could, to prove that their voice was more authoritative than written scripture. And they say, I've heard the Catholics say, I've read it in books and I've heard them on the radio, any Protestant who regards the first day of the week as holy instead of the written seventh day is an idiot. Because they think, sola scriptura, which is what Martin Luther said, only what's written in Scripture. Scripture means script, which is that which is written. And they say, no, our voice supersedes written Scripture. We change the day. We have the authority. We'll torture you and kill you in the Inquisition if you don't do what we say. So every Protestant who regards Sunday bows the knee to the Pope. A fact. And the Protestants are too stupid to recognize it. Catholic words, not mine. And it's like, okay. And then Constantine, amongst others, the original church fathers, Constantine is quoted, you can find it on the internet, he said, we will have nothing to do with the detestable practices of the Jews, which included the observance of Passover, unleavened bread, Sukkot, Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, Shavuot. It's like, detestable practices of the Jews, we're not talking about some stupid pedophilia that might have been acceptable in the Talmud. We're talking about the Moedim, that Leviticus 20c. Yahweh says, these are my, and he calls them Mem, Vav, Ayin, Dalet, Yod. Moedi. Moedi. Now if it's plural, there should have been a mem, but in Leviticus 23, he leaves off the mem. Why would he do that? It's translated plural, feasts, festivals, but the word edi, literally, this is the word ed for witness and testimony. This same word meaning until, there's a connection there that's another matter. But this word edi means choice best treasure, adornment, ornamentation. It's like, man, these are my fanciest studs. What do you mean you don't like them? You know, did I sit in something? What? Yahweh said, man, I've dressed myself up in this stuff, and I'm giving them to you, my people. And the Christian church says, those are detestable practices of the Jews. We'll have none of that. And we'll make it illegal and a crime worthy of being dispossessed, tortured, and killed if you even think of doing anything. I'm using words from the church fathers, Origen and Polycarp and all these guys back in the beginning. The letter mem is a prefix letter meaning the place of, or one who is about that business. It can mean away from and against, but what a different, again, this, that, and opposite, but Hebrew works that way. But I'm saying that the word moedi, like these are one of the moedim, Sukkot. It means the place of my witness and testimony. Witness and testimony of what? My aleph bet, my identity and my intentions of what this universe is about. Why do human beings exist? Why did Yeshua become the Word made flesh to show us the way to do this? Walk in the path of the Yashar Derek, the straight path, and say, follow me. Why did he say do these things? Because to do the things that's written in Hebrew is witness and testimony about the eternal covenant, which are what Yahweh's personal identity. This is a suffix, means my, and this is the word witness and testimony. The objects of my personal identity are in these moedim. That's the proof. I can elaborate a little more later, but what I'm saying is, for the Christian church to reject the moedim is to reject the preferred and designed tokens of the testimony of his identity. That's his DNA, that's his fingerprint, that's his iris scan. Eyeball, iris. It's him, remember? The word that he made for himself, and the word is cataloged or indexed by the Moedim, which I'll show you in a minute. But what I'm saying is, for the Christian church to throw away the designed object of his witness, of his intended, of his intentions, his identity, his kingdom, his plan, his Messiah, who is wrapped up in these Moedim. And they say, oh, we got nothing to do with that. That's a detestable practice of the Jews. The Christian mind has moved itself, has removed itself from his mind. Their spirit from his spirit. Their identity from his identity. He didn't kick them out. They ran out and ejected him and slammed the door, locked him in a box and said, that's not our guy. So for me to realize that, confront that, then it says, well, if I'm going to be about Yahweh's stuff, I can't be one of them or call myself one of them. So I can't call myself by any of those labels. And they say, furthermore, we're going to replace his 7 Moedim with Christmas and Easter. And some people Halloween. Didn't Jeroboam get in trouble for that very thing? Right after Solomon died, gave it to Rehoboam, and Rehoboam wanted to increase the taxes, and so Yahweh, remember at one point the prophet came and ripped the corner off and said, here, I'm going to leave you a little scrap, and I'm going to give the 10 tribes to Jeroboam. And Yahweh said to Jeroboam, if you walk in my ways, if you observe my commandments, if you teach my people to do so, I will make you a promise that I will give you a heritage, what I promised David, that would endure forever, and you'll be like the house of Jeroboam, will be like the house of David. And the first thing Jeroboam did was, if I let the 10 tribes people go to Jerusalem and keep the Moedim like the instructions said, I'm going to lose the kingdom. I'm going to lose my stuff. Oh, no, I can't do that. So he betrayed Yahweh and replaced the 7 Moedim with 2 other golden calves, one at Dan and one at Bethel. Bethel means house of God. Dan means judgment, or to decide or determine. Okay, yes, we've determined that this is really the house of God. No, it's not. It's idolatry. It's heresy. It's blasphemy. And Yahweh said, because you did that, my promise to you that I would make your kingdom everlasting like David is null and void. And I'm going to tear it out of your hands. You didn't give it to anybody else, but there was a series of kings in Israel. And then Ezekiel 37, Yahweh talks about the Valley of Dry Bones, bringing the two kingdoms back together again, north and south. And then there's another book, I forget where it was, Hosea maybe, or... Anyway, Yahweh said that he used the word Hobelim, H-O-B-E-L-I-M. If you look that up and just find where the passage is, he said, break this apart, and I am breaking apart the brotherhood between Judah and Israel, northern kingdom, southern kingdom. So what he broke apart so that there will be a civil war of agitation against each other, Ephraim and Yehuda, in Ezekiel 37, he's going to restore them. That hasn't happened yet. So if Ezekiel 37 hasn't happened yet, this can't be the end of the world. Because whatever he said had to happen. Then if you read Ezekiel 37 and then read further, a bunch of stuff has to happen. Like maybe hundreds of years worth of stuff, generation after generation, maybe even 1,000 years worth of stuff. We might have 1,000 years to go in front of us. But all I hear being preached, internet, books, the Christian voice, I hear what's in front of us is the tribulation, the Antichrist, the end of the world, the rapture, the beast, the man of sin, the false prophet, the 666, and it's like, what about Ezekiel 37? Have you guys heard anybody talking about that? Do you hear any voices about Yahweh restoring his people? Why not? It's all over the scripture. My friend found at least 150 different chapters throughout the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, talking about that event. Why is nobody talking about it? If we are right now at Pesach, these words coming back to life, listen to what he said, and wham, this thing's going to explode with the rising up to the Resh status, just like Yeshua coming out of the grave and they couldn't touch him. If that's where we are in the chronological history, the face of the earth, then what are they talking about? What are we afraid of? We go back to here, 2 Kings 6. Do not fear. This is what Elisha said to his friend. When his friend's eyes were opened and he saw that the mountains all around him were filled with horses, and it says chariot, singular, but it could mean plural, horses and chariots of fire. Thousands of them? Way more than the number of soldiers that were sent to snag Elisha. And he says, this is the way it's translated, because there's more of us, because is key, I'll go into detail in a moment here. Ki ravim asher achnu ma'asher otam. Okay, now this is what this means. It says, there's more of us than there is with them. Okay, now you read it in English, and you say, he sent an army. Was it a platoon? Was it 8 guys? Navy SEALs, you only need a couple. Was it 100 guys? Let's say the king of Aram sent 100 guys to surround this little village and accost Elisha because he's been squealing, giving the king of Judah insight as to where he was going to be. They were ambushes. Maybe he sent 1,000 guys. Like he really wanted to take care of business. Call it 10,000. Would he have sent an entire army of 10,000 guys? Maybe. But Elisha says, hey, don't fear. You see all these flaming chariots? There's more of us than there is of them. Oh, whew, it's a matter of numbers, you know. Maybe there's 100,000 angels, I don't know. But that's not what this is all about. That's what I'm going to try to show you here. Okay, so let's analyze these words a little bit. If you look at this word ki, this is the hand, and the yod suffix means mine. So if somebody holds up their hands and they say, I swear, what does that mean? The Native Americans had a symbol. If you killed somebody, you put the handprint on the horse, right? That means you've taken a life. But there's something about your hand that says, this is my identity. Stop! Says who? Says me! Your hand is supposed to stop. How many? What? You know, but your hand represents me and everything I stand for and everybody backing me up. You mess with one Marine, you got the whole Marine Corps because his hand represents everything else. Yahweh's hand, if this yod means my as a suffix, well, who's speaking? A fundamental consideration of how the language works is that yod is this 10th letter, and this 10 is, a package of 10 is called a minion. The 10th letters means this whole first 10 letters are taken as one word, and if the aleph prefix means I am or I will, then I'm analyzing the language, saying that yod is in reference to that aleph, and it means the omnipotent, eternal creator of all things, who created the Zavot, he and his entire empire of what number? Does he have 1 billion angels? I don't know what he has, but the point is, him and everything he represents stands behind this. So I choose to then interpret, when I see Yahweh says, Ki ani Yahweh, because I'm Yahweh. That word ki doesn't just mean because, but it's translated as, you'll see this in Red Dictionary, for, thus, therefore, because, if, when, while, maybe a couple other things. But it's just a conjunction. It's a throwaway word. Don't fear. Why? There's more of us than there's of them. No, he says because there's more. What I'm saying is that if you look at every word and analyze every word, it's like, don't be afraid. Why? Yahweh's hand. He has sworn. Remember, we're saying that everything he says, if he fails, you can take him to the court of the heavens and say, you messed up, you didn't fulfill your side of the contract. But then Moshe, Daniel, Nehemiah, and when we look at what's going on, it's like, yeah, he did exactly what he said. It's us who failed. So when he's not acting, it's because we've already broken the covenant, in which case, Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, he says, this is what's coming down on you. Your own ways amplified, multiplied 7 times over. The 2007, the 30-year curse brings us to 2010. That's an amplification, a multiplication of our own attitude of disregard, casually or energetically refusing. It's the system of how the kingdom works. So when you see the word kaf yod, it's translated as just this throwaway conjunction, when it's actually, oh no, this is the pivot on which the teeter-totter balances, the fulcrum. And it's like, wait a minute, whatever you put here is tipping on that. Why? Because he said so. That's his hand of swearing an affidavit of truth, which means we better count on it. We better know how it works. We better then employ it as an active force. Employ as an active force. What? What do we employ? Here, Ravim. Well, this word reshbet is where you get the word rabbi, right? So they just say rabbi, BBI. I am is the plural, but in Hebrew, if I say reshbet, I can take the second letter, duplicate it as the third letter, and I end up with ravav. When you do that, sometimes if you look in the dictionary, sometimes it changes the meaning of the word, kind of, sort of, but it kind of amplifies the meaning of the word. So the great use of the Red Dictionary is that you can easily look up a word of 2 letters and double the second, make it a third, and all of a sudden you get this whole other increase of understanding. This word rabbi doesn't just mean multiply. It's the same word for archer. Here's an archer shooting an arrow. Now we've got 10 archers shooting 10 arrows. But if you ever watch one of those movies from the Middle Ages, you've got, 10,000 arrows in what they call a hail, just like hailing ice rain, right? Boom, all of a sudden, that's the picture. So this is a picture of increase, multiplication, a downpour, but also not only number, but significance, importance, and impact. That's Rav. Ravim. Ravavim. The impact, the significance, the importance, the effect. The affect which causes an effect is huge, huge, multiplied. This word asher literally is a straight line. So when we talked about when he said Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh, well that word Ehyeh, it means to exist. Does anything exist here? No, it's a blank screen. If I put a dot, oh, now something exists. It's basically one-dimensional. 2-dimensional is a line. 3-dimensional is if you have a triangle, right? 3 points determine a plane. That's not 3-dimensional, that's 3 points with a plane, which is still 2-dimensional, but 3rd-dimensional is go up with another layer. The word Yaakov is literally the word kov, kufav bet, is where you get the word for a cube, or Kaaba, like the Kaaba stone in Mecca. It's a cube, it's 3rd dimension. So literally the word Yaakov means to ascend into the 3rd dimension, take on a whole nother, if everybody else is playing down like on the chessboard and all of a sudden you're airborne and can fly, that's what the word Yaakov means. Abraham literally means to sprout a wing with strong pinions and soar, catch the wind, and phew. Isaac is laughter, but it's also this hilarious, explosive, almost like fireworks, like, so for him to say, I'm the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, those are the names of 3 patriarchs. Remember what they were about? Yeah. So you pull little concepts of their story. Not much is even said about Isaac, but if I say, no, what do the names mean? Abraham, who had strong wings to rise up and soar, Isaac like this fireworks of hilarious laughter, and Yaakov, who had somehow the means to leap up over obstacles like Superman up into the 3rd dimension, that's all a possibility. That's like overflying any of the mortal problems down here with this spectacular, out of reach of anything. One of the words for high tower is, one of the words is migdal, there's a couple other words, but it means inaccessible, inaccessibly high, where Yahweh positions us in Him, a place where the enemies can't reach us, can't get access. And we have to not just know that in theory as the definition of a word, but in the reality, we have to be so locked on to believe that that's so. So that then becomes part of what Brad was talking about earlier, saying, where's the practical application of some of this stuff? Don't cheat on your school tests. If I don't cheat, I'm going to get a bad grade and they're going to charge me more on my insurance. That's what happened in high school, you didn't get to be on roll, you're going to pay an extra $100, and it's like, oh, come on, so you cheat and you save $100. Where's the practical reality of being a good guy? The practical use of the Torah is to say, you better believe this with all your heart, and inside come to the reckoning of its absolute veracity, true, authentic, and if you doubt it, it just failed. Just like Peter. Hey, can I walk in the water? Sure, coming out. Woo! And all of a sudden the waves are so big. Did he look away? Did he look at the wave? Did a wave come at him like a tidal wave and then go, oh no! Why did you doubt? Oh, he sunk. What do you mean, why did I doubt? Did you see the circumstance? Not about the circumstances. It's why did you doubt? There's something about the plumb line of everything Yahweh says which is theoretical for us to make material applicable real by saying, I've got to take all these words and make them real. I've got to not doubt. Regardless of the visual circumstances which are screaming at me to deny these words, I have to take what he said as more real, which means I now have to put your hands inside your own head and re-manipulate your thoughts and get them to conform to the image of Yeshua, who said, I only believe what my Father believes. I only say what my Father says. I only do what my Father does. Not allowing himself the room to be otherwise. That's Echad, one, unified. So unified that Yeshua said, you see me, you see my Father. Well, what's your Father look like? Is he a humanoid with arms and legs and hands? That's what some people think. But he's an immaterial spirit with no form. So I don't think that people saw the Father. Now, people will disagree and call me a heretic for saying that, but the point is, what I read in Scripture, the Father doesn't have a human form. Yeshua took on, when he made man in the image. What's the word image? We can go back and look at the Hebrew words, but what does it mean to be made in the image of Elohim? Man was made conform to these 22 letters. Are those 22 letters humanoid? No, the letter Hey is like Hey, and the letter Vav looks like a man standing like this. But where's the man? Oh, this means an honored man, but that's a character attribute. Is that the image of Elohim we're made into? Where's the anthropomorphized body? Then it says Yeshua was made in the image of Adam. The second Adam, the last Adam. So what that means is he took on human form. Does that mean that God the Father has a human body? That's what people believe. It's like, oh man, we could go on about that. But what I'm trying to say is, this word asher means straight. And when he says ehyeh, that's like a dot, a one-dimensional. Aleph, hey, yod, hey, ehyeh. A straight line is asher. We talked about this a little bit the other day. Asher. And then he said ehyeh. Well, that's another dot. So if I'm looking at this Hebrew, then I can say, well, wait a minute. The geometrical graphic of ehyeh, asher, ehyeh is a two dots connected by a line. There. If you just saw this picture as a bumper sticker, instead of a circle, maybe make it a solid dot, right? Just
Thank you.
two solid dots. It looks like a barbell, a double. And somebody says, "Who's that?" Says, "That's my God." It's like, are you an idiot? Two dots connected by a line. That's the guy you believe in. That's the guy you trust in. That's the guy that you talk to, and it's like, what does that mean? Can you read the symbolism? Ehyeh, Asher, Ehyeh. What you see is what you get. So for Yahweh, now I'll read the letters again. The expression of what was, I'm reading it backwards. What you see in creation is exactly what was intended by the guy who made the plan. So Aleph is the guy who made the plan. He thought it up. He said, this is what I'm going to do. And he expressed it, or he made sure that its expression was built into the Yod, the working hand that built the entire universe, so that everything is constructed, seen and unseen, the physics, psychology, philosophy, it's all built according to the expression identical to the expression of what he intended. And he's the guy that pulled it off. That could be read Nehi, but it's just translated, I am, I will be. So what I'm saying is that if you look at the letters and realize there's all this stuff going on behind it, and then just percolate the thoughts. You know, it looks better with a dot line than a dot, but what I'm saying is that this is a geometry of the one who made it all, who says that we're his. Do I have any affinity with that? But if I know what it means, it's like, that's where I'm supposed to be. That's where I'm supposed to be, such that when this word asher is just translated that, or it might be translated who, the one, because more with, the more with us, doesn't even necessarily mean with. It means that or who. Look it up in the dictionary. It also means, though, straight, authentic, validated, and confirmed. So this might say it means absolutely so. Undeniable. So affirmative that if there's any doubt, your doubt is what's wrong, not that. That's what the word asher means. This word is just translated, Aleph Tav is with, and Nun Vav with the suffix means us. Okay, but it not only means us, this means our, which is possessive. Our what? Our Aleph Tav. What's Aleph Tav? It's the one word that nobody ever translates. Can't translate it. So in Bereshit, Genesis 1:1, Bereshit bara Elohim Aleph Tav. Hashemayim vayet haaretz. Aleph Tav stands by itself. Nobody translates it. It can't be translated. You look in the dictionary, it might mean a plowshare. It might mean with. It's a grammatical term that says the noun that receives the action of this verb, the at, the Aleph Tav, is the yoke connecting that says that's what it is. It's a concept. It's not even a real word that's translated. But here, sometimes it's translated as with. But what I'm saying is, and just as another little piece of this puzzle, if you see the word Aleph Tav, hey, it's translated as you. And if you look at the word spelled Aleph Tav Yod, it's translated as me. But there's this concept of saying, why is that spelled that way in Hebrew? So now this is trying to read backwards and say, reverse engineering the language and say, why would the language be designed that Atnu means with us, or our, the whole word means our, or us, and if you break it down, you go, wait a minute, if I say this Aleph Tav is actually this whole concept of Yahweh's Zavot, and everything he stands for, and everything the Messiah is about, and everything Israel is in covenant with him for, that Aleph Tav, which he said is ours. The validation, the absolute certainty of our Aleph Tav, the significance, the importance, the dynamic, powerful effect, like a hail of arrows in a military engagement, or like hail the size of basketballs, boom! Remember, he hailed on an army and wiped out a couple 100,000 guys in one battle. Yahweh does stuff like that. 185,000 Syrians dead one day. There's all kinds of stories. A 1 million-man army routed because mice got in and chewed on the fabrics and the ropes and stuff overnight. Because he swore that the absolute truth of our Aleph Tav, this letter Mem as a prefix letter means away from, but it also means at, and that, or that place. It also means the, you might say the one who. Mem can mean these different things. Asher, well, that's the same word. So you could say, okay, listen, do not fear, because the great importance, significance, the powerful effect that's absolutely real, whether you know it or not, whether you can imagine it or not, whether you can even believe it or not, you better believe it, you better force yourself to believe it, because our Aleph Tav, which is all this stuff, is the opposite of that which they, Otam is translated they, but this word Tom means the word perfect or complete, naive, innocent, a few other things, that's word Tom. But, hey, wait a minute, there's the letters Aleph, Vav, Tav. That's a letter of the alphabet. But it's actually also sign, signal, and oath that they believe is absolutely true. So if I drew a picture of a skull and crossbones, and you saw it on the back of somebody's truck, like we just drove down the way here, and the guy that has a bunch of skulls and stuff all over his property. What does that mean?
Death.
Death. You mess with me, you die. What if I drew a picture of an eyeball with a pyramid in it? What does that mean?
Illuminati.
What do they represent?
Death.
Death.
You mess with us, you're dead. We're going to take over the world. Their symbol of their power is nothing. It's away from the reality of our Aleph Tav. If you don't know what this means, you believe in a belief that somebody gave you. The church, a philosopher, some idea. But this Aleph Tav that Yahuwah Zavot built before he built the universe, that was so true and so valid and so solid that Yeshua himself stepped into this Aleph Tav like it was a suit of clothes. His essence of his person stepped into this Aleph Bet and wrapped himself up in it and came to the earth visiting as an embryonic human to walk in our same condition. And that Aleph Tav is this Aleph Tav, which is so solid that any fear we have is our own ignorance of not knowing, because we were lied to by the people that were supposedly teaching us truth. And when they took away the Moedim, when they took away the Shabbat, we got just a few minutes here. Put this over here. Just briefly, we could go into more detail. It's on other tapes. Chet, Tet, and Yod line up with Passover. Kaf Lamed with unleavened bread. Mem Nun with Shavuot. Yom Teruah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shemini Atzeret. Now, other people split apart Shavuot and make it two festivals, and then they lose Shemini Atzeret. There's reasons I say this is what it is. It fits the pattern. That's another discussion. But what I'm saying is, I will, prefix letter, bet, wrap myself up in an embryo, gimmeling, traveling to Dalet the earth. The fact that this letter is a lens that separates heaven and earth is like a lens right here at the intersection of these two Dalets, the infinite realm, the material realm. To understand this alphabet is to see this lens between heaven and earth. The firmament, as it were, between the separated waters. To understand these letters is to perceive this. So this Dalet, this doorway, this passage, he came to reveal to man the door of how to get back to the house of the Father from whence we were ejected or strayed or chose away. But this man was put to the weapon, crucified. Pilate and said, "Behold this man adorned with the crown of thorns and the weapon of the Romans, who then put to death." So Hevav Zayin is a prophecy that the guy, Bet Gimel Dalet is the word to be wrapped up in clothing, to deceive, to betray, to beguile. He came in disguise, cloaked and camouflaged, looking like a human who would be put to the weapon, killed, crucified, put into a tomb, the round rock rolled in front of it, held with the metal bar, sealed, but he says, "By my own hand I've done this. Nobody's taken my life." Then there's 1, 2, 3, these work as a triad. 3 days and 3 nights he sprouted back to life, rose up. He said he's coming back as the prince who will destroy his enemies, give provisions to his followers, and that's the terms of the covenant. There's Yeshua. Then I can analyze these three things here and say, the word Yod Kaf Lamed means he who has the power and capacity to prevail and contain it all. Kaf Lamed is the lines of Torah and the instruction of teaching. These lines, reading the words, Mem Nun, taking it to heart. Mem, like this womb within you, and Nun is then that new self of you that's birthed unto eternity because of the seeds of the Torah, of Yahweh's word that you've taken in. Psalmic Yeshua said, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Do what he said. Bear good fruit. The ayin is the shape of the fruit, which will be inspected and analyzed. And then at Sukkot, you eat the fruit. You share in like what you've been doing all year. And then Zadi is this promise of the sprout of resurrection. So just like Yeshua sprouted from the dead, just like Aaron's rod that was authorized as being the Kohen HaGadol, the high priest, because it came back to life and sprouted overnight, bearing a leaf and a branch and fruit and the blossom. This is the authorized truth. This is the Torah placed inside the Ark of the Covenant. So this lines up with the big white fence of the Mishkan, the barbecue grill, the laver, then inside the menorah, the table of showbread, altar of incense, Ark of the Covenant. And above the Ark of the Covenant was the pillar of fire and pillar of smoke billowing, like question mark, exclamation point, over the Ark of the Covenant down here. So what I'm saying is that you can see these types, and then this is outside, this is in the future, the long reach. Kof is also a monkey. Kufav Pei, so like that's what comes in the future. So wait a minute. Here's Yeshua coming down in disguise, being put to death, 3 days and 3 nights, reappropriating what it means to be born of him, of a new creature who's going to live forever, sprouting out of the grave, and rise up to this ascended. So this is not only a prophecy of the future, after life on earth, after death, but it's also a promise as a fractal pattern of what he told Israel according to the terms of the covenant. He says, just like what they did in Egypt, if you become Egyptianized, Hellenized, like Greeks, like Romans, like Americans and British, Chinese, or whatever you are, if you lose Yahweh, you've lost it. And your enemies will overwhelm you because that's the way it's built. And the antidote, the defense of it all, is not to get bigger weapons and fight against the bad guys. It's to return to Yahweh. How do you return to Yahweh? There's the Moedim. And if Yeshua is this word, then that means he's composed or stepped into the clothing of the disguise of the Moedim that look like a human. And if these are the Moedim, and it represents how to get birthed by, Moshe said, I put before you life and death. Choose life. Life represents the big white fence of the kingdom, the castle of Yahweh, and death is this weapon outside, cut off from him. So we're all subject to this death until you choose life. You choose life. You learn the Torah, you take it to heart, and you reconfigure your own inner self to say, yes, I'm good with this, and I'm going to nurture like a pregnant woman, Batula Zion, the maiden, the virgin of Israel, who says, I'm going to do everything I can to take that seed that Yahweh put within me and nurture it. You'll actually become that unto eternity. That you become the Nun, but anyway, then you bear fruit. You observe carefully. That lines up with the Beatitude. Blessed are the merciful, so they shall receive mercy. The measure you use is measured to you. It's like what comes around goes around. Okay, so then speak of these things. And the re-emergence of this language is the Pezadi. That's right where we are. In which case, this is what's in front of us right here. So if we take on this act of hope in the face of, this is the Atnu, our enemy's got nothing. 10 minutes, I thought we had 2. Oh! Okay, I'll stop. Any questions?
What did you just say?
Anybody want to tell them what I just said?
Just a quick summary.
I'm sorry, my door's in the car. I just handed it to you.
No, really? We got 10 minutes? It's only 45? Okay. He kept showing me the numbers getting faster and faster. 3 minutes, 2 minutes. Okay. Okay, let me go back. I can read 2 Kings 6 as just a story. Elisha's there, they're coming to get him, and he sees flaming chariots of angels and horses in the mountains, and he says, don't be afraid, there's more of us than there is with them. It's like, oh, okay, don't be afraid. Don't panic. It's like when you see the Gestapo coming to the door, when you see an army, when you see a bunch of, just call them bad guys, whoever those bad guys are, the guys that are not your guys, and it's like, oh gosh, what do I do now? Oh, don't be afraid. There's more of us than there is with them. Are you kidding me? There's 100 guys. There's 1,000 guys. They're coming with torches and rocks and guns. And it's like, I'm just standing here. How can I believe this? What I'm suggesting is that there's a different way to read this, which is absolutely true. And what I'm saying is if you break down the letters, if we know that the truth of the Aleph Tav is what this is, that the reality, the absolute reality of what those letters mean, that he gave us to be ours, with him, in league with him, married to him, echad with him, is so effective, so powerful, so overwhelming. Nothing can stand against them, because all of heaven and earth, everything he built, all his angels of the Zavot, all his military forces, back up, because his hand said so. And the only reason why we haven't seen or experienced for the last 2,000, 3,000 years, 3,000 years since the time of David, David saw a little bit. Solomon was at the pinnacle, the most wisdom and the most wealth of any man that would ever live. And Yahweh said, oh, that's going to be nothing compared to what I'm going to do. Hasn't happened yet. Happens after Ezekiel 37. We haven't seen it yet. There's the promise of something in front of us that the church, I've never heard talk about, that the Jews don't talk about, because we're not one of them. We're filthy, pig-eating goyim as far as they're concerned. We've already abominated themselves. We have no part of the covenant. Our covenant includes what we should eat and what we shouldn't eat. Our covenant includes keeping the Sabbath day. According to this pattern, this Zion is number 7. That's a weapon. According to this pattern, the Zod is number 7. It's a fish hook. That's a weapon. The two letters that are weapons represent the Sabbath day that the Christian church doesn't have, but yet they do spiritual warfare. With what weapons? Oh, we believe. Believe what? You don't believe Yahweh. You don't believe what he says is his witness and testimony. What are you believing in? Doctrines invented by who? The Catholic Church that presumes to change the written word, and when Yeshua said, it is written, go there to find it out. When you go back to the original language that created the world, that Messiah himself dressed up in, the Hebrew language, the Moedim. This is all authorized. I'm trying to show you that the validation of this theory is not me. It's the fact that these letters are correlated to the Moedim, which are Yahweh's testimony of his personal identity, that built the universe and will sustain until heaven and earth pass away. It's still valid. I could elaborate, but that's more words, more time. But what I'm saying is that we can have the confidence that if we engage these Moedim and these Sabbath days, we're operating in his identity, his stuff. And everything that he held up his hand and swore to, we've got all his legions of angels backing us up as we stand as his front man, his pawn, or his esquire, his attorney, as it were, on the front line of the chess table. And nothing that these guys have, whether it's these guys or those guys, their symbol of what they think is their perfect oath is nothing. It's away from the Ravim Asher Etnu that Yahweh has given us in his Aleph Tav. And if we don't know his Aleph Tav, too bad for us. All we got is our belief. But if we know this Aleph Tav, this is so real, so true, so actual, that this entire universe is composed. This is not a foreign language. Because if this is actually the word from which, through which, the lens that everything on earth was created from the heavens, not just the heavens, but from Yahweh's heart and mind, that he pushed through this lens of the Aleph Tav, if everything that exists on the face of the earth is an expression of that, then that means human consciousness, human flesh, biology, philosophy, botany, astronomy, the history of human progression, and everything that human can find himself engaged in is all an expression of the Aleph Bet. Because there's no other elements to engage into the story. Everything goes back to these 22 letters. So if you learn these 22 letters, it's the theory of everything. It's the study. It's the actuality of everything. So whatever it was that, just named the guy in the wheelchair was...
Stephen Hawking.
Stephen Hawking wrote a book, Theory of Everything. Whatever it was he was looking for, it's this. And this is what he gave us who are connected, yoked with him, the same way Yeshua was. And there's no way to break it. Can't be broken. Therefore, all we can do is wrap our minds around it. And the way this works is that like attracts like electromagnetism. So as we think about his stuff is pulled in. As we do his stuff, stopping work on Shabbat, keeping the Moedim, his stuff comes in. There's this verse in Jeremiah 31 where Yahweh says, soon as Ephraim, we can go back and read it, we'll do that next time. Soon as Ephraim goes, what have I done? I was a fool, I was an ignorant youth. And he slaps his thigh in anguish, there's another way to read that. But as soon as he does that, first off, before that, Yahweh's going, Ephraim, you stupid jerk of a son, what you drive me nuts, I'm furiously mad. As soon as Ephraim turns, Yahweh says, is Ephraim such a delightful child, or my favorite son, that whenever I talk about him, my heart grows fonder and fonder? It's like, what? What caused Yahweh to turn to that? Ephraim turning to think about Yahuwah. Yahweh speaking of Ephraim, it says, whenever I speak of him, my heart grows fonder and fonder. Well, if Yahweh is our model that we emulate, then whenever we speak of Yahuwah and his things and his Moedim and his ways, our heart grows fonder and fonder to him, which turns his heart fonder and fonder to him, to us. And this connection is solidified, and it will change the universe. Because the whole universe is a vibrational expression going back to the heart of the Father, and for us to synchronize with his stuff is our Aleph Tav, which is what everything this alphabet. You don't have to learn the dictionary, you just learn what these 22 letters mean. It's Yeshua, it's Yahuwah, it's Israel. Israel is Yashar, Yod-Shin Resh, which is similar to Aleph Shin Resh, which means absolutely straight path, plumb level square, right. Truth, justice, kindness, and righteousness. Those 4 words repeated over and over. Truth, kindness, justice, righteousness. Emet, chesed, mishpat, tzedakah. A substance, the 4 pillars of the kingdom. That's what we got to be about. And when we betray that, when we do things that are contrary, everything starts corroding. Quick, the antidote. Do what he said. What did he say? Quick, do something. If you have to do something, quick. Find a widow or an orphan and give them something. Find an enemy. Love them. What? He doesn't deserve to be loved. It's mercy. It's not deserved. It's, he gave us the antidote. How do we do it? Speak the truth. Speak the truth. What's the truth? This stuff. The reason for making these videos is to be projecting truth. So it'll have an effect. I'm not trying to go, hey, Christmas and Easter and Sunday is a big fake, just to be mouthing off. No, it's to project truth so that we can have this resonance of reality so that Yahweh can then do what he says. That's the only reason for doing this stuff. Any other questions? We got about a minute. Yes?
Okay. I'm going to try to put this in a way that I can understand it. All right, so when you say, all right, let's take 2 Kings 6:16 and just that entire thing from what you talked about this last hour, and go back to the sons of Jacob and Jasher. If we are walking out this and putting ourselves, like if we are in this situation and we're walking out this, is it kind of like the sons of Jacob and Jasher?
I would expect so. Now the reality, somebody says, yeah, but what if it doesn't happen? What if I get a flat tire and somebody comes up and mugs me? It's like, I can't account for the what ifs, because this has to believe that there is no what ifs. So if somebody says, you liar, somebody got, hey, I can't account for the what ifs. All I can do is say, this is the ideal that we got to wrap our mind and heart around. Like the sons of Jacob in the book of Jasher.
And from what it's been a bit since I've read Jasher, but from remembering Jasher and the sons of Jacob and the fact that they're like modern day we consider modern day superheroes. That's where they got it from. But to me, it would seem as if they were literally walking this out to be able to.
I would agree. Yes.
Walk that out.
And that's what this word means. We have to take on the reality of what these words mean. Yahweh swore it, Yahweh built it, Yahweh backs it up, and he gave it to us. And we have to be in our heart as an inner plumb line exactly, undeniably like Peter. Why did you doubt? No excuses. Why did you doubt? They're big. There's so many. Why did David not doubt about Goliath? Why did Joshua not doubt about Jericho? Why? I could tell you every story goes back to the exact same thing. Do not doubt. Do not fear. Have absolute confidence, but you got to know what the terms are, so you got to go back to Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, and read what happens if you do doubt, what happens if you do betray it. I better not. What are the terms? Truth, kindness, justice, righteousness. You operate in that, believing in Yahuwah. This is his identity, walking his Shabbat and his Moedim, and the rest is process. And we're at the end of the video.